Two guys of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. Judd already bright and early as we record this on a Thursday morning inside the Vikings practice facility demanding answers before the season. Doogie's going to be headed out there. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Let's start with the breaking Vikings news this morning. It's pretty rare that breaking news dumps like 5 minutes before we press record. So the Vikings have waived Jaren Hall. So Jaren Hall, now they might sneak him back on the practice squad, but they waived Jaren Hall and they bring in 6-year NFL veteran backup quarterback with Super Bowl bloodlines in his family tree, Brett Rypien, added to the Vikings 53-man roster. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Judd, you want me to go first, or would you like to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, hello, boys. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Hey, star of Hard Knocks. Love Brett Rypien on Hard Knocks, cut by the Chicago Bears. I don't know if this is the end game in terms of who the number 3 quarterback will be. Phil, yeah, definite interest in Jaren Hall ending up eventually back onto the practice squad if it all works out. You think about last year going through 4 quarterbacks, I suppose more trust in Brett Rypien if it came down to that this year compared to Jaren Hall. I'm not overly surprised, but I just don't know, Judd, if this is the complete end game. Like, will Brett Rypien be on the roster 7 or 8 weeks from now, for example?
It's interesting. So Brett, in his career, has played for Denver. He's played for the Rams. He's been with the Seahawks, the Jets, and then Chicago. He has started 10 games, 4 years with the Broncos, a part of a season with the Rams, 4 games started. So I got to think that the connection to the Rams, which was fairly brief, but he did play a game, has some of a security factor blanket for O'Connell because he obviously was in McVay's system. But yeah, I honestly didn't expect this. And, I thought once Hall made the roster that he would stick as the 3. And Phil's probably right. He probably comes back now because teams have set their practice squads on the practice squad here. But that being said, yeah, I don't know if we're now in for a cycle of quarterbacks. And here's my big question. It's not Jaren Hall, Dukes. My big question is this. Are the Vikings looking for a guy they consider to be a backup upgrade from Nick Mullins? Is this trying to slowly but surely play around? Poker chip, right? That 3 guy, poker chip. And are they trying, do you think, to maybe bring in somebody who would be an upgrade on Mullins potentially if Darnold, 1, flat out just stinks, which could be a problem, or 2, as we saw last year, gets hurt? What do you think?
Well, I think there is something to be said about that. Phil, what about this name? Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Oh.
So Jameis Winston is in Cleveland. Okay, so reckless speculation, right? It's Reckless Speculation Thursday. But
sure, it's a safe
here's
space.
what I can tell you. The Vikings had all sorts of pre-draft interest last year in Thompson-Robinson. Now, Judd, is he an upgrade over Nick Mullins in this moment? We can certainly have that conversation. I'm not convinced of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when thinking about, that's why I just don't know, considering Brett's age, is he here 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks from now? I'm not convinced of that. That are they truly seeking a younger type guy, an upgrade over Jaren Hall? And I just wonder if Dorian Thompson-Robinson is that guy. And heck, is Cleveland even willing to move him? That I don't know, but I'm just saying here on this Reckless Speculation Thursday, that would be a name that I would monitor.
That's a really intriguing name, and here's why. One, obviously, the GM's connections to Cleveland, so it makes sense to pick up the phone there. But 2, remember, 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, the Minnesota Vikings were in Berea, Ohio, joint practices against the Browns, and Kevin O'Connell got a long look at DTR, who might not be an upgrade right now, but he's younger, and upgrade might be the wrong word. How about this word, you guys? Upside.
Yeah.
Upside, not upgrade.
Like Mullins has reached probably the ceiling, the
He's
capacity
hit the ceiling of this building. Yes.
Yeah, and he's fine. He's a he's a guy you can put into a game, and he's gonna go Brett Favre light on you and probably throw 5 interceptable passes, and he's gonna give you some 40-yard chunks down the field. But like, he's a known commodity, so you'd be just. And I was just curious because both Jaren Hall and Dorian Thompson-Robinson were 5th-round picks in the same draft, right? But Dorian Thompson-Robinson went 24 picks earlier in the 5th round. So it wasn't like the Vikings chose Jaren Hall over DTR. DTR was not available unless the Vikings traded up 24 spots or more to get him. So interesting.
And consider Mullins, free agent after this year. Sam Darnold, free agent after this year. So yes, not only upside, but somebody that you can also, in addition to J.J. McCarthy, cultivate over the next couple years. And if it's not Thompson-Robinson, somebody of that ilk. I'm telling you, I don't know if Brett Rypien is the end game here. That to me is the headline of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, all right. Well, we'll keep an eye on the quarterback situation, see if Jaren Hall sneaks through to the practice squad because they've put 2 years of work into him. But as you've now let the dust settle on the Vikings 53-man roster here, they wind up going a little younger and UDFA-centric with their defensive line room. Dwight McLaughlin, a UDFA on the cornerback side. What stood out to you going back to cut day a couple days ago now that we have all the information?
Well, I mean, Kene Nwangwu.
Yeah,
I'm still surprised. People close to Kene are still surprised. Not surprised that some team put a waiver claim in on him. He ends up ultimately with the New Orleans Saints. And how does that running back room play out over the next few weeks? Now, Gaskin can be elevated. They like Miles a good amount. And I don't know if the right running back is available right this second. But you think about Aaron Jones's injury history, you need more than him and Ty Chandler. Now, is it just Miles? I think right now it is. But over the next handful of weeks, this roster is still going to evolve. Yes, okay, they go young. But like, is Jalen Redmond here 4 or 5 weeks from now? You think about roster spots 47, 48, 49, 50, 51. There's fluidity there. So I don't think the roster we see today is even going to be the roster we see in just a few weeks.
On the front of the fact that there's technically 3 backs, but it's 2 because CJ Ham is a fullback, Dukes. Here's my thought process, and I've not looked at this complete list yet. What veterans are out there now? Because, of course, if you wait till September 9th, the day after the regular season opener, you can sign a veteran to a contract, and it's not fully guaranteed. Up until if you sign a guy right now, it is guaranteed. So my thought process is I wonder if they're going to just promote Gaskins for the Giants game, go with 3 in that game, but ultimately then go out on the street and sign a guy who, if things don't go well, they're not on the hook for his entire 2024 salary.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that move is Gaskin. You know, you elevate as long as you can elevate. What is it? A couple times? What is the limit? Is it 2 or 3 in terms of elevation?
Yeah, I think that's right.
And after that, is just he the move, or does somebody else free up? Now, some of the other moves like Lewis Cine, zero surprise. I will tell you, though, some people close to Lewis are incredibly happy with the Vikings front office, specifically Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Some of the phone calls he accepted, just the help that Kwesi was. Now, it sounds like he's ending up now in Buffalo. That shifted this morning. We thought the New York Jets, that there may have been some sort of verbal, but no pen to paper. So now Lewis will end up with the Buffalo Bills. But that Kwesi was very helpful. That multiple people close to Lewis are very happy. Yes, it's disappointing it didn't work out. But there are no hard feelings. That I heard from a couple people saying, hey, Kwesi was great during this process.
Well, that's nice that he can botch an entire draft class and completely whiff on a trade 20 spots back and have one of the biggest busts in Vikings history. But he was a nice guy while he handled that draft plane crashing. So it's very reassuring, dude.
I knew it was a Scott Klingenbeck fastball right down the plate for you. Scott
it really was.
Fastball, Phil.
What a great guy.
Absolutely butchered that draft, but you were a nice guy on the back end of it. So nice job, Quace. Great
but
job.
zero surprise. I mean, I don't think there were a ton of surprises. I mean, maybe
Exactly.
some of those defensive linemen, defensive tackles making the roster, right? But, I mean, it's hard to nail all 53. But overall, outside of Kene, there was nothing where I was like, whoa, completely shocked by that.
And I told when we did the Cutdown show a couple days ago, I told Phil this. You know, the one thing that stands out to me on the lines is the fact that they are clearly at the back end, Dukes, both offensively and defensively, making a commitment, it looks like, to keep younger players, which I think is all part of this process. I like this. Like, this is, again, this is not a tanking. This is not a season where you expect, I don't think personally, to be terrible. I think that their subsequent moves have shown that. You don't sign Gilmore if you know that you're going to win 4 games. But that being said, I think there are subtle showings of, hey, you know what? We're going to develop guys too. And so instead of keeping veterans in the offensive line and defensive line room at the bottom of the depth charts, they went young. I don't know that they do that 2 years ago, but I like how this again ascends to, I think, where they're trying to land, which is if these guys get experience in 2024, they probably can hit the ground running in 2025. And quite frankly, on the defensive line, I think they have nothing to lose. It's not like they cut really good players. So I think that there is a plan in place here to really gradually build some guys up, which is a very smart move in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, you bring back a Jonah Williams onto the practice squad. So if you need to elevate him, I mean, he's a depth guy anyway, but you have that ability. I'll tell you the position I would watch more than any is right guard, is that Ed Ingram spot. Whether it's a Tyrese Robinson or, you know, maybe somebody on the 53. Is there eventually a chance for one of these young guys? And hey, maybe it's not even necessarily this year, but I'm just saying, I think they've had a number of discussions internally about the future of that right guard position. That, yes, okay, Ed Ingram is good to go September 8th. Not convinced he's good to go this time next year or even later in the season. That position more than any is the one I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that in year 3 he is playing into the 3rd preseason game.
Sure, the optics suggest it, but you hear enough behind the scenes chatter. You just wonder about his security at that spot. Now, hey, maybe he plays better than he's ever played before. Yeah. We see it against the Giants, against the Niners, against the Texans. And we could have a completely different conversation in late September. But I'm just telling you right now, I'm led to believe, like, I'm just telling you, Robinson, some other guys, like if they develop enough, just keep an eye on that right guard position.
What? So, you know, we keep looking at over-unders, and 6.5 has been a common number for the Vikings. And there's this sort of built-in excuse now that J.J. McCarthy's out for the season, and not that he was expected to start necessarily, although Ben Gessling has kind of come around, Vikings beat writer, saying some of the things I've heard recently are that maybe he would have started week 1. But my question to you is, Doogie, from the people you talk to, what is the expectation for this team in 2024? Is it because there's a huge chunk of the fan base that's just kind of like, whatever, it's 2025. Let's start campaigning for 2025. But there's 53 dudes and a bunch of coaches and people that do this for a living. Any idea what the expectation is inside that building going into the season?
The expectation when you sign Stephon Gilmore is, hey, we can compete for a playoff spot. That if you look at the 2 conferences, yes, I think the NFC is better than it was last year, but you can still make a compelling case. The NFC is the weaker of the 2 conferences. So you play in the weaker of the 2. That there should be a pathway to one of those playoff spots. Maybe it's not necessarily winning the division because you can make a case, okay, weaker conference, but you play in the best division in the conference. So maybe you don't win the North, but you should be in the mix. You should be playing meaningful football in late December. That 100%, even though Harrison Smith took a pay cut, when you bring back Harrison, when you make the move on Gilmore, okay, yeah, Jonathan Grenard, Van Ginkel, some of these guys, you think about 25 and even 26, but these guys can play right now. That you're not investing all that money, all right, to take a step backwards. So you win, 7 last year? They're not thinking, okay, yeah, we're on that 6-7 cut line, whatever the Vegas over-under is, 6.5. Like they're thinking, okay, we should be in that 9-10-ish range. All these games, a lot of them at least, come down to the final 4 minutes, one-score games. Then we need to make enough plays late. Let's get to double-digit victories. Let's get to 10 instead of being 7-10. Let's be 10-7, Judd. And hey, we are in the playoffs. That is the expectation internally.
I think that's exactly right. And I think where the experts are wrong is the defense. I think the defense, they have spent on that side of the ball. They have what I would consider to be an elite coordinator in Brian Flores. So, like, I think that the experts might be right on Darnold. Like, we just don't know there. But I think on the defensive side of the ball, people looked at December when this team definitely declined and said, well, okay, it's done. That's not true. I want to get back to McCarthy, though, Phil, and Dex and Dukes, because there's something that bugs me about this whole thing now. This, in hindsight, I'm here and he might have started. Okay, here's what bugs me. Do you guys remember, okay, he has the great game where he comes in the first preseason game, plays lights out. And O'Connell wasn't lying when he said subsequently we were going to start giving him first-team reps. He very well could have won the starting job. We all saw it playing out. It was a movie. Like, it started with, okay, he's not going to play. And none of us were like, well, he has to play, because he didn't have to play. But the reality is, you'd have to be pretty foolish to think he had no chance when O'Connell basically laid it out. He played him against the Raiders. He planned to start him against the Browns. He was going to give him first-team reps. Like, this was all being done in stages. If he had continued to thrive, he would have started probably. So, like, there's not this, like, oh, man, in retrospect, now he would have started, and you need to know that. Like, this was all laid out. We knew how this was playing out. We all talked about it. Darnold is a safety blanket, nothing more. And that's great. But, don't be surprised that, and this was the disappointment. I think internally it's the big disappointment. In this building where I sit now, there was a devised plan that next week to start McCarthy getting significant work with the first team. So, like, this is not a surprise. This is not oh, my God, he would have started. If you covered training camp, you saw how this was going, right, Duke? So, like, I don't think that we should now say, well, in hindsight, he just would have started and it would have been great. No, there was a formulated plan here that, by the way, I think we all agree, we applauded. I liked it. It was very intentional, to use a football, baseball, sports word. Very intentional.
Absolutely. And could he have won that starting job September 8th? Sure. I still would have put my money, maybe because I'm stubborn, because I've said this going back to late March, that Sam Darnold was going to start week 1. But I'm telling you, you continue to talk to people behind the scenes. They gush about J.J. McCarthy. They love him. Kevin O'Connell, by the way, was intentional when he finally said, after the season-ending injury, that, hey, I am confident we have our franchise-changing quarterback.
Correct.
All right? That was by design. Trust me. That was his paper, his bullet points. When he went to the podium, he knew exactly what he was going to say. That was a talking point that he thought through, that was discussed with others. And, hey, you say it because you believe it. So they love J.J. McCarthy. The other disappointing thing is, I do think eventually, okay, I'm stubborn. I think it would have been Sam week 1, that we would have seen J.J. at some point this year, that it wasn't going to be a complete redshirt year. Like, I think we'll see Drake May at some point with the Patriots. Okay, Jacoby Brissett starts week 1, but I firmly believe we'll see Drake at some point. I believe we would have seen J.J. at some point this year. It wasn't going to be, even though we discussed it maybe a month or two ago, the possibility of this being a complete redshirt year with a healthy J.J. McCarthy. I do think the way it was trending, he absolutely was going to play at some point this year.
We'll do some rapid-fire scoops here in a moment, but welcome back, Underdog Fantasy, for another football season here, Dex. Tell them about it.
Absolutely. So Underdog Fantasy, a proud sponsor of us here at Score North for the last few years, and I'm happy to have them back here. Underdog is the easiest way to play fantasy sports. They have a great app. You can do higher or lowers. You can draft weekly fantasy football teams. And right now, new users get up to $1,000 in bonus cash, baby. You can have $1,000 extra bucks in bonus cash for all the type of pick'em slips and all the drafts you can make. Use the promo code SCORE when you sign up. I was getting in some Underdog Fantasy yesterday around the baseball scene. So go download the Underdog Fantasy app. Football season's here. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Promo code SCORE for a deposit match up to $1,000.
Also, hello to Nicolay Law. So, man, I was driving through even Western Wisconsin. I was driving through visiting my ailing grandfather yesterday, and Nicolay Law all over Western Wisconsin, all over the Twin Cities. Big supporters of the purple, of the Twins, and Russell Nicolay and his team know that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life can come to a stop and things can get complicated. That's where Nicolay Law comes in here. Help you take a deep breath and make sure you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So tap into a lot of experience just in the Twin Cities area too. They know the lifestyle here, and they're here to help you get that compensation you deserve after an accident. So it's NicolayLaw.com or 1-855-NICOLAY to get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. And I'm going to ask a Twins question. I know you guys are all bailing and already looking at 2025. I believe that the tide will turn, and you can get tickets. You can get tickets. Twins.com/tickets. We've got the tail end of this homestand. There's some giveaways. We've got City Connect tote bag giveaway tomorrow. 5,000 fans are going to get a City Connect tote bag. Judd's going to get a Barbie-inspired Twins pink crossbody bag.
Don't think I won't.
In a couple days. It's going to be great.
Sunday, baby.
Why wouldn't I?
Twins.com/tickets or twins.com/Barbie if you just want to cut right to the...
Barbie's in, so I'm all over it for a collectible.
Maybe we can do twins.com/Ken
I'm
for
just Judd.
Future homestand.
I'm
just Judd.
Never taking my shirt off, though, because the masses don't need to see that.
So, Dukes, give us some rapid-fire scoops here. I don't know, if you have a Twins nugget or like a life preserver you can throw them, fire away.
Well, I mean, I think about this time last year, and I get it. There are examples the other way, but in the moment, like I think about like this time last year, how bad the Texas Rangers were. Declan, was it 4-16 over a 20-game stretch?
Yeah,
The Rangers were spiraling out of control, then go on a run, right? To me, it's all about getting in. Now, I get it. The Twins still have to go to Fenway. And depending on what you think of the Red Sox, like, could the Red Sox trump the Twins and push the Twins
that
down?
sounds like an opportunity for the Twins to me.
I would say so. Declan, you were there, yesterday, the other day. I mean, I can't pinpoint on these injuries, but like they firmly believe they are going to get back Byron Buxton. They are going to get back Carlos Correa. Mm-hmm. Buxton, I'd like to think he's getting some rehab at-bats here before the week is over. Although I would have told you that a couple days ago, but like it's very, very close on Buxton. I don't think he needs many rehab bats. On Correa, we've discussed it endlessly. Just needs to play through pain. Now, hey, Joe Ryan not coming back. That's unfortunate. Chris Paddock not coming back. That's unfortunate. But the lineup can still mash when fully healthy. I would not give up on the Twins. They still have enough games left. Kansas City, 3, Cleveland, 4. So the division race is not over. Although, 3.5 right now, Declan? And Cleveland has the tiebreaker. So really it's 4.5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty big number to overcome over a month. But getting into the playoffs is still realistic. They were in on Nick Anderson before Nick the other day chose to opt out. He opted out of his Dodgers contract, chose to sign with Baltimore, signed a minor league deal, but the idea is the Orioles will get him in their bullpen here pretty darn quick. But the Twins did have some interest. I brought his name up on Tuesday. I brought up Michael Tonkin's name. That did ultimately happen. Michael Tonkin now back with the Twins. Hey, he looked pretty good last night.
Yeah, Buxton will probably, if they had one more kind of check to make basically in his rehab before going off to Omaha with St. Paul, which will probably happen tomorrow. Brooks Lee most likely staying through the weekend until the rosters expand on September 1st. And then Correa, giant shrug emoji is probably the best way I could describe that.
Yeah, I mean, the cleats and I think I sense there's been some interesting conversations behind the scenes, but I get it. Like, he wants to be out there. It's not like he's happy not playing. That's stating the obvious, but He's going to have to play through some pain. He's going to have to, and I get it. The pain is greater now than it was last year, but you got to fight through it. And I think he will eventually. I just can't tell you the exact date.
I think, Dukes, that for our next scoop session on Tuesday, I think that you should check with your sources, though. I think we've slept on, not the quotes, but Correa's inspiration on Saturday last week of coming out and giving chapter and verse on what's wrong. The ankle stuff is really interesting. Yeah, like you don't. First of all, the team has not said that, right? So they clearly didn't want to say that, and it was almost like those quotes. And I guess I don't blame him. Sort of defend him because guys like me, jokesters with a microphone, were saying, "Well, it's just like last year. He should play through pain." Like the same thing that you're saying now. I was saying for a month. Well, and then he's like, "Hold on a second. It's not the same thing." So I would love to know the inspiration for him almost seeming to defend himself. And how that's gone, because to me, those quotes changed this entire story.
Which is fair. Now, I will say, I'm saying that based on hearing that from others, right? So I'm not just opining top of my head.
That's my point.
Suggesting that. That's why I'm saying I think there's been some interesting conversations behind the scenes. But yes, when he opens that door, certainly, yes, there's more to glean. Heck, you start wondering about insurance on the contract specifically related to the right ankle. Do the Twins even have that? I don't have that answer. Maybe insurance overall, but maybe not necessarily tied to the right foot / ankle. And hey, right? Like, let's remember he failed physicals, Mets, Giants. You open up Pandora's box. You have a lot of questions. But I'm just saying at some point he's going to have to fight through the pain because he is not going to be 100% at any point the rest of this season. So if he plans on playing the rest of this year, he's going to have to fight through some pain. That's what I'm suggesting.
Darren Doogie Wolfson. I know you guys are on a time crunch here today.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm heading out to Quasi, 11 a.m. Judd's already there. The Bears. So I mentioned 14 teams on Tuesday coming tonight for Gophers, North Carolina, scouting purposes. At a 15th team, the Bears RSVP'd on Tuesday night. So 15 teams, 18 NFL scouts representing those 15 teams, including the Vikings, at Huntington Bank Stadium tonight. Also a big night for the Gophers men's basketball team hosting a few recruits.
Oh, that could be embarrassing potentially. I mean, you got to be careful. You take them to a football game, and all of a sudden North Carolina's up 31-6 or something.
Well, they're going to get soaking wet too because the forecast for kickoff
is going to rain.
Not good,
yeah,
but Duke,
backfire.
There's a window
got
to
your
get
coffee,
the game
Doogie. I've got your coffee for you.
Oh, nice.
So get out here.
I'm on my way
right now.
I'll see you in about 30 minutes.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, Darren Doogie Wolfson,
Thanks,
a scoop session here.
And by the way, I had a nice conversation with Tim Connolly the other day, Wolves president of operations. Definite interest in extending Rudy Gobert. Gobert wants to finish his career here. The Wolves have a great relationship, as Tim told me, with Rudy's representation. I'm not suggesting anything is on the cusp of happening, but definite interest. And they will still scour the free agent market, especially if they can add a guy in an Exhibit 10. Like Lonnie Walker was a guy that they kicked the tires on earlier this summer. He ends up yesterday with the Boston Celtics on an Exhibit 10. If you want to say the Gary Trent Jr., Tyus Jones contracts are nuts, which, hey, I hear you. Those guys signing for the veteran minimum. How about Lonnie Walker not even getting a veteran minimum contract? A legit NBA player.
No.
It is just mind-blowing. But that tells you there are pretty good players available, so the Wolves aren't necessarily done. And I got that sense from talking to Tim Connolly.
Second Abram, man. Brutal. All right.
Thanks,
see you,
Dukes.
Dukes. We'll see you next week.
Take it easy.
All right. Yeah. For those of you also looking for some more fun content, we're going to have a Thursday episode of Purple Daily today. You guys did a post-game extra innings after the sweep from Target Field last night. And then on the feed yesterday, the Flagrant Howls feed, Kyle Tigey and I, peak off-season content, we re-ranked the top 100 Timberwolves players of all time. Major debate about the timeline for Anthony Edwards to take over the number one spot at some point.
31 through 100 were just great names. And I loved how that was kind of the cutoff of, there's a cliff, in my opinion, from 31 to 100.
What are you talking about? Come
It's
on,
great.
man. Those guys were great.
We sent the list to Jim Peterson via text, and he basically just laughed at us like,
Yeah.
look at that. Look at that
Look at that
cesspool
list.
of names. So, all right, we got to run. We're on a timeline here. Judd's patiently, anxiously, all at the same time waiting for the Kevin O'Connell Kwesi press conference. So we'll see you guys over on Purple Daily today.